It has been a century since live radio broadcasts like the National Barn Dance on WLS in Chicago and the Grand Ole Opry on WSM in Nashville began airing variety shows of performances of roots music from 1924 and 1925 respectively. These were radio's first hit shows, and the idea took root all around the country. Longtime North Carolinians may have heard of the Crazy Barn Dance on WBT in Charlotte and WPTF in Raleigh in the 1930s, for example. These early variety shows featured music ranging from what we call country music or Americana today, but was then termed hillbilly music, to gospel and folk music, as well as comedy skits in the mix. Radio itself was brand new, having been a curiosity before the Great War, but shuttered entirely in the U.S. as a public offering during the years of the world conflict, only to re-emerge as a medium that would become ubiquitous in the 1920s. Over the following decades, most of the truly live broadcasts fell by the wayside. And although the Opry is still going strong, another variation of music variety shows came on the scene with shows like A Prairie Home Companion, E-Town, and Mountain Stage, which crossed over into being radio shows that were adapted from their original live performances and edited for length and content. The live, as well as the live-to-tape format, shows a symbiotic relationship between live performances and the radio and more recent media like podcasts. The event itself has its own draw, but broadcast that and your ceiling is exponentially higher. Now you have an even larger arena to work with, and the broadcast helps turn any number of casual listeners into fans and potential live audience members. When the old Art Deco movie theater in Elkin, North Carolina changed hands in 2013, its new owners were aware of this and approached Martha Bassett and her partner Pat Lawrence about the possibility of producing a live series there. A couple of years later, the Martha Bassett Show made its debut. WFDD in Winston-Salem, North Carolina originates the weekly show, which is also syndicated to other public radio stations especially, and which my station WNCW picked up for broadcast in early 2025. The Martha Bassett Show put on its 100th episode in April of this year, which seemed like the perfect time to trek up to the northwestern foothills of North Carolina and take it all in. The show featured guests Liz Longley, Hank Patty and the Current, and a music artist who happens to have built many guitars for Grand Ole Opry members, among other stars, Wayne Henderson. Wayne's version of Sweet Georgia Brown from his set at the Martha Bassett Show is playing now. I spoke with both Martha Bassett and Wayne Henderson while there, where we talked with Martha about the extraordinary nature of the show, with collaboration amongst its guests a built-in feature, the ever-changing and now perhaps especially challenging landscape for the arts, and with Wayne about his world-famous instruments, as well as memories of Doc Watson and current Grand Ole Opry member and client, Marty Stewart. I'm Joe Kendrick, welcoming you to stick around for all that and a lot more on this episode of Southern Songs and Stories.
Scott, thank you. Thank you.
Southern Songs and Stories is a proud part of the lineup at both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, the leading storyteller in music. Follow Southern Songs and Stories wherever you follow podcasts, with more at southernsongsandstories.com. You can engage with us on social media. Southern Songs and Stories is on Facebook at Southern Songs and Stories, on Instagram at South Stories, and my YouTube channel is Joe Kendrick NC. Martha Bassett on WNCW and Southern Songs and Stories. So great to be here in downtown Elkin, North Carolina for your 100th episode of the Martha Bassett Show.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's great to be here. It's a great day.
It is.
Weather's pretty nice, and we're fully into spring. It's not oppressively hot yet, although it might be this weekend.
It might be. Today we're good, though.
100 episodes. Tell us the story for those in our audience that don't know about Martha Bassett Show. You're 8 years in. How did it all start?
Well, it all started when Chris and Debbie Groner bought the building that is the Reeves Theater, the historic Reeves Theater, and it took them 2 or 3 years to renovate. But Debbie had reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in doing something regular, and my partner Pat Lawrence said, "Oh yeah, we're going to have a show. We're going to call it the Martha Bassett Show." And after some time, he convinced me that this was a good idea. And when the theater opened up, we started this crazy endeavor that we have been joyously doing ever since. It has changed slightly over the years, but we always knew that we wanted to have equal numbers of female artists and have variety, sort of like Prairie Home Companion. We don't do the breadth of things that Prairie Home did, but it's generally a musical variety show.
It's a pretty big swing, and it's not your first act. So you've been doing it for a while, 8 years, but you've been doing a lot of things before this.
True.
A lot of groups. You've got 11 records to your credit, Martha and the Mood Swingers, as well as your current band, and you do lots of jazz, but you branch out into a lot of other things. So really, what made you take the bite? It was something that I know you described the premise on how it became available, but what really made you say, I'm going to get married to this thing for 8 years running now, and that's a while.
It is. Honestly, I was kind of nervous about it at the beginning because I had not been a presenter. I was an artist who was traveling around like all artists do, and I realized that would ground me, and I was kind of nervous about that. But then I realized, I don't have to travel. I can just stay here and do this thing and bring all of the artists to me. And at first, before people knew we were here, I mainly reached out to my friends and had them as my first guests. And for a while, I had to explain every time I was reaching out to an artist that I didn't know what we were trying to do here. And now we at least have some name recognition, and I have a lot of folks reaching out to me, so that makes my job a little easier. But it was a big leap at the beginning, and I'm really glad we did it.
Martha's backstory includes a lot of time on stage with her own musical career, but it did not include a lot of experience presenting as a host. This came into play when she led a Wednesday night Americana worship service intersecting faith music and secular music, where she met Pastor Sarah Howell, who is now playing percussion and keyboards in her house band. That experience was a foundational step towards her show becoming a reality. The intersection of music and faith fascinates me, and I put forward that you could easily argue that all music is spiritual on some level. Here's Martha Bassett.
I absolutely feel that. All music is sacred.
Yeah. And then you've got a very feminine forward programming mindset. Yes. Plus you have this fascination with the Shakers, who were also very forward thinking in having women as leaders in the church when, that still remains controversial in a lot of churches today.
It does,
let alone the 1800s. Mm-hmm. So what about Shaker culture and Shaker music gets to you?
Oh, I love it so much. So my undergraduate degree in music was from the University of Kentucky, and our choir would spend a week there every summer reenacting a Shaker worship service, and gosh, it was fun. And that actually became my summer job when I was in school. I would dress like a Shaker and go to the Shaker Village, and I would every hour for 15 minutes, I would sing Shaker songs for the tourists. And then when I came to North Carolina for grad school at UNCG, I really missed that music, and I did my master's thesis on Shaker music.
Well, a lot of hymns that are existing today, not a lot of Shakers exist today for a lot of reasons.
Two.
One really good reason is
Yes.
the celibacy thing.
Yeah.
But all that aside, their music known especially for being beautifully melodic, but it didn't adopt harmonies, I
Right.
think, until later.
Right.
So tell us about that. Where do you plug in with that?
Yeah, the reason that the early Shaker music didn't have harmonies is because music was used to teach the theology, and remember at this time not everybody could read, and they also wanted to make it easy for the community to all learn the music, and they were against people specializing and being experts at something, so they didn't bring in professional musicians to lead or anything. It was very much egalitarian.
And the dances, what about the dances? They were almost Pentecostal, perhaps? They
Yeah.
were, originally called the Shaken Quakers.
Right. The dancing was organized and rehearsed during the week for the worship services, and it was very controversial at the time because, dancing, some churches still don't agree with dancing. And
Well, the waltz was incredibly controversial from the jump, just because people actually got that close.
Right.
Which is
They touched
amazing
each
to
other.
think about now.
I know. Yeah, I could talk all day about Shaker history and these ideals of how their theology works with the music and the dance. It's amazing, and art in general.
Speaking of art in general nowadays, I wonder what your thoughts are on the state of the arts, because the times that we're in, the news of the day, it's looking rather uncertain as far as, look at what's happened with the Kennedy Center.
Right.
I know you've got lots of sponsors and backing for this endeavor, which employs a lot of people. This is not a small operation. Myself, at a public radio station,
Right.
we're in the same kind of boat as far as relying on some public funds and things, and we're thinking right now, not what if that will change, but that's probably going to change. Are you looking over your shoulder?
I am looking over my shoulder, and I'm trying not to obsess about it because there's so many things out of my control. What is under my control, to a certain extent, nothing is really in your control, but just trying to present the best show that I can, and I'm just trusting that the good is going to come out of this crazy time that we're living in, and I don't know. It's hard because we all hear the news and we know what's going on in the world. And gosh, Joe, I just have to believe in the goodness of what we're doing. Not just quality, but good in the world. Our hashtag or our theme for the show is good music for good people, and that's kind of a funny saying, but I also mean that. We want to present, regardless of genre, we want to present good music. We want to work with nice people. And our audience is the best. They're so generous with the way they welcome our guests to the show. And they've been that way from the beginning. And we have a core group that comes to almost every show. And they welcome the other audience members in who are traveling, who might be tourists. And it's just a beautiful home that we have here at the Reeves Theater. And I feel like we've created a real community that genuinely loves each other. And our team definitely fits that category. We've had very, very little turnover. We've added people, and we've lost a few people who moved away, but I'm just trying to stay positive, because if I don't, you know what,
Sure.
what
I mean,
this
you
is
could
all
just
about.
spiral and
Yeah.
quickly
You
if
can.
if you dwell on that. But I think about it sometimes in the context of WNCW and all of the music associated with social movements, civil rights,
Yeah.
a very easy one to pick. There's a ton of hits in that pantheon of American music, and I imagine that a lot of your guests speak their mind on the
yeah.
stage.
They do.
And whenever I hear a song on my radio station, or I play it, or I hear somebody else play it that speaks truth to power, I start to feel a little bit more, won't say nervous, but aware of, like, this could be a problem someday soon.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that.
It's becoming more dangerous all the time to speak truth to power. And but I'm not going to censor any of our guests or myself.
Yeah. I mean, you would hope that community that you build the Martha Bassett Show with is going to go with you when you speak that truth.
Yeah. We know our audience.
Yeah.
They're, I don't know what to say. We know our audience. We know who's sitting in those seats for the most part.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. It's just a lot of parallels with earlier history with the civil rights movement, for example. There were a lot of things going on in that era that were scary.
I was thinking when you said that about the Smothers Brothers show, which was just the sweetest show on TV, and they
But they
were
dared
canceled.
speak out against the Vietnam War.
Yeah, exactly. They got
was-
canceled for that.
That was it. Yeah.
And the Dixie Chicks. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it seems rather innocuous nowadays.
It does, doesn't
it? It really does.
Wayne Henderson was born in Grayson County, Virginia, where he still lives today. He's a full-time instrument builder and musician, specializing in building guitars and playing in a unique finger-picking style. When he was young, Wayne built his first guitar out of a used dresser drawer bottom. He sold his second guitar in exchange for some tools and cash, and ever since, somebody's wanted to buy one of his guitars as soon as he got it finished. If you'd like to buy one of Wayne's guitars, I'm sorry to tell you that they have become so famous that he has a long backlog of orders. He's built guitars for Doc Watson, Gillian Welch, Peter Rowan, and Eric Clapton. In fact, there's a best-selling book called Clapton's Guitar, Watching Wayne Henderson Build the Perfect Instrument. In addition to luthier work, Wayne is an accomplished performer, having won over 300 ribbons at Fiddler's Convention competitions. He's toured internationally as part of the Masters of Steel guitar tours, performed at Carnegie Hall, the Smithsonian Institution, on A Prairie Home Companion, and for the 1992 presidential inauguration. Since 1995, he's also hosted the annual Wayne C. Henderson Music Festival and Guitar Competition, and they say that winning that competition is the only way to skip ahead on the waiting list for one of Wayne's guitars. He's brought an all-star band with him tonight, with Herb Key on guitar, Randy Greer on mandolin, Josh Scott on bass, and I am so honored to present to you Mr. Wayne Henderson.
Right. Thank you, Martha. This is an absolute honor to be here on this show. And like I say, I've got some best buddies with me to help pick. And these young fellers are good pickers. And me and Herb, we're both geezers. We've been around a while. But we're going to try to play you some tunes. We like to pick. And so we'll do one here about the Panhandle Rag. Is that okay, Randy?
Wayne Henderson on WNCW and Southern Songs and Stories. So glad to see you tonight to play here in Elkin at the Martha Bassett Show. So good to talk to you.
Well, great to talk to you. I'm glad to be here and had a wonderful time tonight.
It was a big time. Have you done this show before?
Never done this show before. Never had. But I have played on WNCW before.
That's right, you have, with a certain Doc Watson, I believe.
Yeah.
Wonder about what's up with you lately. I know you got to talk a little bit on stage about what you've been doing with, of course, building guitars and now mandolins and things, but what's your day like? What's good about today?
That's about always my day, just in the shop working on those guitars. I'm working on number 955 guitar, and that mandolin I had tonight's one of the last things I finished. It's number 154, and I don't make as many mandolins. I do guitars, but there's a lot of work in those things.
Does it take longer, or?
Yeah, they're like a carved instrument, like a violin. You know, that top and back starts out with a piece of curly maple or spruce that's 3/4 of an inch thick, and you have to shape it down from the outside till it looks like a mandolin, and then you got to carve out the inside so it's the proper thicknesses. And there's all kinds of things like graduations, they call it. You know, it's got to be thicker right in the middle than it is anywhere else, and it gets down to thin, and that lets that whole top plate and the back vibrate better. And that's a sort of a more science than I know anything about, but I know how to shape them, you know.
Well, there's a lot of science to it, but there's also a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, but I've been around enough luthiers and heard enough stories of building instruments to know that the conditions and the sort of the mindset and the emotions and everything that's going on during the time that you're building a guitar, especially the guitar builder, the luthier building the instrument themselves, like that is a very big factor, and it's really spooky sometimes about what comes out of that. Have you witnessed? Am I even close?
Well, yeah, that's for sure. That's absolutely stuff like that goes on, and you know, I guess that piece of wood grows in a tree, which is no two of them's exactly alike probably, and you cut that piece of wood out of it, it makes a sound and a ring and a vibration that's like not the last piece of wood you worked on. So you have to sometimes figure that stuff out by tap. They call it tap toning. You know, you pick up a piece of wood and tap on it, and it makes a certain tone. And you have to sort of figure out how that tone works together with the next piece of wood you're going to glue to it. And, you know, stuff that's especially big deal in violins. You know, they tune the top plate, the spruce top and the maple back, tone apart. And, you know, in a fiddle or violin, there's a sound post that connects them. You know, when they vibrate, they go together, and it's supposed to be like a harmony thing. And you have to listen to those pieces of wood. Every piece of wood that I put in an instrument, almost every one of them, I'll pick it up and tap on it just to see what it sounds like and hear it ring, you know. And it, you know, that wood has its own tone. You mentioned Doc there a while ago. He hung around my shop quite a bit, and he would. You know, he's blind, he couldn't see, but his hearing was absolutely amazing. And he would pick up a piece of wood in my shop and hit it with his finger, tap on it enough to make it ring. And he said, "Son, that thing rings an F chord. That'll make a good sounding guitar, you know." But if he could have been able to carve and build things, he would have been pretty amazing with his sense of hearing and tone that he had. Would have been something else.
What are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm getting 77, almost 78 years old. I'm just looking forward to being around a little longer, maybe. And I would love to be around long enough to get to 1,000 guitars. I guess right now that's one thing, and as I get older, I've got too old to play golf or fish or anything like that, and so concentrate my energy on working in the shop and making something that somebody enjoys, and I look forward to sometimes, my guitars secondhand bring tremendous amounts of money, and more than I would ever charge. I never do that, and if I charge prices like my guitars bring secondhand, no musician or none of my friends would have one. They couldn't afford it. And so I try to make that stuff mostly for fun. I don't try to make money doing this much. I make a little enough to keep the shop going, but I enjoy making them for young folks that can't afford a guitar and stuff like that. I do that quite a bit.
Well, my advice would be to hold a few more back.
Hold
a few more back is my advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though 52, like you made out like it was beat up and old, and
well, it is.
It didn't look that bad to me.
And well, I mean, you're probably an instrument person that likes the looks of an old guitar like that.
Yeah.
I'd rather see one like that than a brand new shiny thing, and looked like you'd be afraid to touch it, you'd scratch it and stuff like that. But that old guitar, I've played it pretty much all over the world, and I played it in Pakistan and in England and all sorts of places,
You probably know the story of Marty Stewart and his mandolin when he joined Johnny Cash's band.
Yeah.
And Johnny Cash straight away scratched on it.
Scratched his name.
Yeah, and Marty was not prepared for that.
Yeah.
And then it became the most signed mandolin in country music.
Before, yeah. Actually, Marty came to my shop recently, just the last month or so.
Really?
And he was there was a fella that takes pictures stuff, comes to the shop a lot, and I was out sitting out on the bench out in front of the shop talking to him, and a pickup truck drove up. And I told that fella I was talking to, that guy on the passenger side, if that ain't Marty Stewart, it sure the heck looks like him, And when he got out, it was him. And Dale Jett brought him over, who Dale is A.P. Carter's grandson. And I know him, and I'd met Marty before, and, a little bit and stuff. He knew who it was, but he wanted to come see my shop. So that was an honor, and it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good story.
Among the long list of names of musical greats to buy one of Wayne's instruments are the aforementioned Doc Watson and Marty Stewart, as well as Gillian Welch, Peter Rowan, and Vince Gill.
Okay, here we all are coming back out on the stage. You know what that means. Yes. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and I want to give an extra special thanks to Kilpatrick for supporting us tonight and being our show sponsor. Means so much. And I also want to thank Joe Kendrick for coming and interviewing me and the other artists, and for his podcast for WNCW. So please listen in and support that amazing station. So we're going to end with a song that I'm pretty sure all of you know. So please sing along with us. And can you put your hands together again for Liz Longley? Hank Patty and the Current. Wayne Henderson and friends. And our amazing house band. Okay, Deshaun, will you kick this one off for us?
Collaboration is a part of every Martha Bassett show, and it's remarkable to hear on the radio, let alone witness it in person. Martha joins in on guest artists' songs regularly, and guest artists join in on any number of songs outside their own catalog, with everyone mostly learning these songs in short order. Some are familiar favorites like this, the show closer for episode 100 of The Martha Bassett Show, where everyone, including the house band, joined together for this rendition of I'll Fly Away. Thank you so much for being here, and we hope you can help us by spreading word about what we're doing. It's as easy as simply talking about it with a fellow music fan and following this podcast on your platform of choice. From there, it takes just a moment to give us a top rating and where it's an option, a review. It makes a great impact because the more top reviews and ratings we get, the more visible we become to everyone on those platforms, which means that more people just like you connect with music artists, culture, and history. This series is a part of the lineup of both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, with all the Osiris shows available at osirispod.com. You can also hear new episodes on Bluegrass Planet Radio at bluegrassplanetradio.com. Thanks to Martha Bassett and Pat Lawrence for making this episode possible, and to everyone on the show staff and at the Reeves Theater. This is not the first time I've been to the Reeves. Longtime Southern Songs and Stories listeners will likely remember past episodes with artists like Christina Vane from her time at the Reeves as part of the Reevestock Festival lineup, as well as an earlier episode on Reevestock founders and Reeves Theater benefactors, the band Time Sawyer. Thanks also to Jacqueline Anthony for producing the radio adaptations of this series on Public Radio WNCW, where we worked with Joshua Ming, who wrote and performed our theme songs. I'm your host and producer, Joe Kendrick, and this is Southern Songs and Stories, the music of the South and the artists who make it.
Pat Lawrence. Russell Kelly composed our interstitial music. Jeff Irving, James Bricky, Brady Reed, Doug Williams of Electro, Magnetic Radiation Recorders handled the sound, Nick Bassett, Danny Carr, Krista Joe provided our video broadcast, Bevan Dyer managed the stage, and Miranda Carr sold the merch. You've been listening to the Martha Bassett Show. It's good music for good people. Thank you for joining us. Come back and see us. Drive safe.